I recently went back and I looked at some of the earliest reports that I'd ever made with Power BI, and I found it really interesting that none of them, I mean, they were all ugly, right? But none of them used tables or matrices, whatever. And I was thinking about why, and the reason was pretty much the fact that I was moving away from myself from Excel reporting and trying to steer a group of people from Excel reporting, reluctantly, obviously. And for that reason, I kind of was rejecting this concept completely of data in tables, which is, wrong, I would say, for sure. I'm still not a huge fan of using them in Power BI reports. That being said, I use them a lot in Power BI reports because I think, as is always the case with visualizing data, it's about finding the appropriate time to use the appropriate visualization. And I think I said in a previous video that I don't use many or any, other than the checklist slicer, any custom visualizations, and this is part of the same thing. I just don't think they're necessary because I think there are generally enough of it inside the tool to do the job. To an extent, also too many. I don't want to go through all the visualizations, that's probably for a different video. But certainly here, if we look at the visualizations that are used in a report, you can quite easily make a report with just 3 visualizations, for sure. And if someone said to me, you can only use one visualization, if you're making this report, you can only use one visualization, I would most definitely choose a matrix or a table. We'll say matrix for the sake of argument. Yeah, and I wanted to look at this report because I think for me it's a good reason, it's a good example of why that is. All the data here is open data. You can get it from High Street. You can get an API key, and it's again not complex data, but it's pretty cool data. But I wanted to use this report because I think this is the report where I've used matrices the most in any one report, and I think to good effect. So you can see straight away here in this report that your main page, you have some visualization showing trend, but the ability to create a very simple heat map within a matrix is very, very beneficial for your data analysis. So here you can see street, and you can see the average number of pedestrians by time. And it's very clear straight away. Yes, you can use these things to show different things. So this is by time of day. This is also by time of day. This is by day. So these aggregations are fantastic. It's great to show on your bar charts, on your column charts very easily, but to also show a very clear, much more precise level of analysis. The ability to do that in a matrix is excellent. And I think when you start to use Power BI, that initial move from, or any visualization tool, but Power BI, that initial move from Excel to Power BI, we can do interesting things, we can put pretty pictures on data. It's great, for sure. Like, embrace that and go for it and do what you can, But I think it will be a miss, for sure, for your analysis if you didn't come back to putting some matrices in your reports. And I think it's important, though, you to do it in a really nice way, because I do see some reports using matrices, but there's no need to make them look ugly. Beautiful data deserves beautiful visualizations. And this, to me, I think looks good and also provides nice insights. To take it a step further, I have another page. If I can quickly go to weather analysis, which I believe I used on a screenshot on my Twitter feed a few days ago. And for me, this also, I gotta say, I really enjoy how I really enjoy how this looks. You know, these are again what we got. We just got a matrix. We have here, we have our conditional formatting. And obviously for the column headers, we're using an image, which for me looks quite nice. It's clear to see what these images are. So you can absolutely do that. If you see here, my column is the weather image, which is the same thing as I'm using here, my chiclet slicer. And I think really what helps is the absolute versatility in the styling of a matrix. And to be honest, it is far, far better than any other visualization within Power BI for how you can design it and how you can make it look. Really, it's quite. I mean, let's just take this one for an example, and I will paste it onto a new page of data. So I've got this here. Obviously, on the page you saw before, we had it. So here, actually, I'll just copy this across as well. So I'm using like a dynamic top N, and here I've got top 10, so I'll keep it to the top 10. Or we have space for 15, so no, don't think, go away. Say top 15. So now we're using a top 15, and that's how that looks. If I were to recreate this visualization using the same fields, I'll just try and do this nice and quickly. So weather image, street, and top end pedestrians. Excuse me. Street. Nope, go away. Don't want you. Top end pedestrians. And weather image is my column header. Cool. So, like really straight away, you can see that these two things do look very different. Yeah? And you can go through the styles. I mean, we all know what the styles look like, but I mean, obviously, depending on the background and stuff, you can really make them look very, very different at a click of a button. I mean, some of them are like hugely, hugely unacceptably ugly. And this is fine. I mean, yeah, it's okay, I suppose. But, you know, there's lots of different types. For me, the best way of doing it, to be honest, instead of going for whatever default, I actually normally just go to none and then build it myself completely. So I know precisely what everything entails, you know? This also works. Again, I focus quite a lot on Kleinigkeit, on sorry, I said a German word there, on the small details. But you know, row padding to me makes a huge difference as well. You know, if you take something down to row padding, say I don't know, row padding 1. I mean, the difference between that, and I know you're talking about fitting in data, and that is huge. You know. What else? If you look at your styles in your column headers, row headers, you take off this, also just start away, quite nice. Also there, none, grid, horizontal grid, vertical grid, off and off. Yeah. These are the small details, and of course on your row headers you have the option, you know, to do your where is it gone? Yeah, show on rows. So the show on rows thing for me is also like very, very cool. The way it is essentially you can kind of pivot your data through. It's really like a very cool thing. And of course we all know you can do stuff like what are you going to do? I know you can do this on all visualizations pretty much with your what I do with your ability to I will only have Germany, that's why it didn't help. Excuse me. Street and city. There you go. or just city rather than country. So now you can start with your city and you can click on here, and so this is more a functionality thing. But yeah, I mean, for me, a wonderful thing. Because you can make them look so different, and because you can do so much. If we again go back to this one perhaps in a second, we have there the conditional formatting for a background color, but also for your font and your data bars if you're so inclined. Of course, you wouldn't mix those two things together because that's ludicrous. Even that is something for me, you know. The fact that you can add that bar in there. Of course, you can do other things, like if you don't want to give the precise, you can say just show me the bar only, all this kind of stuff. Wonderful. Like, why not? Of course, you're losing quite a lot of value by only showing the bar, but just to show that level of like trend or aggregation by bar on. Fantastic. Love it. So, not to go on about it too much, but really, when your reports, no matter what you're building, if you have something where if you go back to street again, I hate that. I don't like maps, by the way. If you go back to what you're showing in your visualizations, see, I love that you can do that. The show and rows thing is great because now it's about the intelligent use of space. Also in the reports, you know. So here, what we can now have, we have our matrix, and we have our weather image as the column. So, I mean, this is actually quite funny because with the show and rows, because I do have a colleague who hates show and rows, and we discuss this respectfully, of course. We respect each other's opinions. But if you don't like it, fine. Of course, don't use it. But, you know, would you rather scroll up and, like, for example, if you don't show this on rows, then of course you're taking space across the report in a different way. So now we're kind of taking up space vertically instead of taking up space horizontally. So if we take that show and rows off now, for example, now you have it this way. Fine. Like, cool. Again, I prefer that. I think the data kind of looks a bit cleaner, and I mean, I even prefer that for if you just go like value and then value, you know, last month and last year. I like to have them stacked. I like to have them show in rows because I think from a mathematical perspective, somehow for me, it's easier to view them that way. You can do so much with the matrix. Again, I'm not inclined to say, you know, build a report full of matrices, but if you do that, if you for some reason have to build a report and it's got nothing but a matrix inside that report, explore all the options and all the things that you can do with them. I know that maybe I'm too focused on the visual aspect when we look at Power BI, and of course there's a lot more to it than that, but it's a data visualization tool, right? So that's, I know it's just one part of it, but you're giving data a visual element. So for me, the visual has to be important, and you can't ignore all the great stuff you can do with matrix. But if I say that, and then I see something like this, let me just quickly do something. Go with you and do that. And I see something like this just kind of like shoved into the corner of a report. Let's put it more in context. Like that there, like I would hate that, you know, because yes, okay, you're showing information, but it's like there's no, I think it's because it's so easy to make a matrix look so much better. When I see something thrown in like that, then I don't like it. This is just my opinion, of course, but this is how I would use a matrix when I'm first creating my report, because that's what I do with the matrices as well, or tables, whatever. I like to check my calculations using the tables, using the matrices, so I can see that the information is correct before I go through. So I'll basically, a lot of people will kind of, okay, I'm going to choose my measure, and then I'm going to choose my axes. Yeah, so I'm going to like do a bit of this, and then they're like, great, I've got it. You do more than that, of course, but you see my point. I would always choose the value last, because I want to basically see it in a format where I can understand the values that I'm looking at, you know? This is something to me that would always make sense. So you start that way and say, okay, now I've looked at the data and I've sorted it by maximum temperature, I've sorted it by the sum of all temperature. So now when I could tend to do that as well, I'll copy and paste it. So now when I create the visualization that I want to see, which in this case is just a temperature, so we'll get rid of that, and then I decide to put it in to the final form, if you will, or start to build the final form of the visualization. I know that when I do this and I choose my top 10 by temperature, I'm just more sure in my head that the values that I'm seeing are correct, because I have the values right there. And of course, that's nothing to do with me not trusting Power BI or whatever. Of course I do. I just don't trust, myself so much. So yeah, there are multiple uses of matrix, is what I'm trying to say, and use them. Don't assume that because you're using Power BI, you shouldn't use a matrix, because it's all about bar charts and whatever, this type of chart and whatever these data tree things are, tree maps, sorry. When they're appropriate, use them. But there's nothing wrong with a matrix being appropriate. But if you do use them, don't make them fugly, because that's very upsetting. Yeah. Cool. I think I've probably spoken enough about matrices now. It's time for me to be quiet, and it's time to probably go to bed soon. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Why am I sitting here talking about this? Cool. Thank you very much. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.